heard that one. I know you have. It's one of the few that you could say, "Oh, yeah, I know that band from like 800 years ago." How you doing, everybody? Welcome in. Squeeze on the record. I'm Benny B, and a shout out to a few friends tonight because that's what we do. Uh, my dear friends Steve and Mike from my class. Steve's my tech guy in the class. He's all-purpose. He's my Swiss Army knife, but an Italian one. But he's great, and the shout out to him who keeps the music flowing in my class. And if it weren't for him, don't know what I'd do. He's my computer advisor. He does everything. Actually, I should give him my salary. Lee, who is in Florida, a little under the weather tonight. He's not feeling great. He left with a bug, and at least he took the snow with him. So shout out to Lee. And we have so many others. So we have to shout out Ira and Mitch and just everyone who bothers to come in and support me. So Squeeze, look, you know the song. You've heard that song. And the thing about Squeeze, if you want to talk about the death of punk rock, they were involved in the early scene of punk rock, and they were labeled the next Lennon and McCartney, Difford and Tilbrook. I'm being serious. In fact, they were on the Rolling Stone magazine cover, I think, in '84. That's like being on ESPN's cover of team to win the World Series. It's a jinx. But they're old-fashioned pop craftsmen. In fact, I've met them a few times. Chris Difford is very much like Elvis Costello. He's a great news reporter. He'll go to bars back in the day with a notebook and hear conversations. Elvis Costello does that. Costello a little wordy, Chris a little too British, and I think Squeeze had a problem when MTV was coming around with VH1. You had to have a sexual package, Duran Duran. You had to have something, and they were stuck in between, and I think that hurt them truly. But they were saved from a workman's death in English pubs by New Wave. If it weren't for New Wave, they probably would have done little bars for the rest of their lives. But, Difford and Tilbrook, the core of Squeeze, found their niche in small settings, dramas of British life. I had a British fiance. She got me into them. So thanks, Court. But their music can be reflective, morose, gay, not the word that America looks at, like aided with trusted and tasteful rhythms, keyboard, flamboyant Jules Holland in the beginning, who became a star in England with his own show, Hootenanny, a very soulful Paul Carrack, who took Holland's place. He was on the lead single, Tempted, which is probably their bestseller. They've weathered everything from stylistic digressions, endless lineup changes, the onset of maturity, bridgemen that spanned British dance hall tradition into modern tuneful tunesmiths. And it was a wobbly bridge. Picture the old bridge, that wood sway bridge that you walk on and you say, this thing's got to fall. That's who they are. They're aggressively uneven, their albums. That is the problem. Few groups have thrown the dice with as much unpredictability as them and still around 50 years later, right? McCartney, Ray Davies, even at its worst, it's like a Paul McCartney song. The words may not be what you want them to be, but it's always a polished, nice production. Now, the early records put them on a solid trajectory. Classic Premature Squeeze, and they billed it as Squeeze UK in the US. 5 guys, Gilson Lavis, a little older than them, is a great drummer. John Bentley, bass player. Difford, Tilbrook. and Holland, obviously. They barreled through inconsistent material. John Cale from the Elvis Costello, Stuart Copeland era was their production manager, and he cluttered it. Sometimes when you try too hard to be wacky, you're not wacky at all, or you're not interesting at all. Take Me, I'm Yours. That's wacky. Uh, Bang Bang, both produced by the band. Shows spirit, also shows that they should have a real producer. Now, they entered adolescence with Cool for Cats, which is a very wacky Chris Difford song. And it's a song that really shows you what they're about. Now, Chris Difford told me when I was talking to him that he wrote that song watching all-nighters. BBC had old movies. Back in the old days, BBC didn't have live television. And he was watching movies, and one was about a cowboy and Western shooting arrows through hats. The next one was about like Bowery Boys type of kids getting in trouble, robbing something at an airport. And then something like a Saturday Night Fever, where a guy goes to a disco, tries to pick up a girl, and fails at both. So you could see Cool for Cats. It was a sweet song. Difford's a little gruffer. He's showing confidence at the mic, considering it's really one of their first songs. Arresting odd harmonies, bent pop tunes, great cuts, slap and tickle on that album, which is an interesting song because if I could find it here, I try not to play that much so I don't get struck here. But take my word for it, it's a good song. It's not here. If I Didn't Love You, Awkward. That came a little bit later. They released a 6 squeeze song set, a mini greatest hits after the original album. But everyone grew up on Argy Bargy. I think that came out in 80. That was their biggest album. They found their style. They were settling into it. Intelligent Brit pop with enough of a weirdness to show that they were different. Oh, did I shout out Damien? I don't know if I did. My pal Damien. If I Didn't Love You, for Farfisa Beat, good song. Pulling Muscles for Michelle. Sometimes you can get too clever. I think America just didn't know what to do with some of the lyrics. I'll give you, for instance, at the risk of losing my money here for this show, which I probably will because of copyright infringement, but I don't care. You're my friends. What am I going to do with another dollar anyway? Listen to the first 2 lines and you'll say, what? She used to do a topless down at the sorry dumps with tassels on her onesits. She did a terrific job of raising all the eyebrows of every lunchtime mob. Okay, not lunchtime mob, I know. Tassels on her watsits. She did it. She was a dancer. But you don't want to hear that even if you know what it means. It's tough to hum to. So they come out with stuff like Another Nail in the Heart, A Sad Sack, Romantic Defeat. If I Didn't Love You, Spins It Around, Heads and Tails. Now, one cut on the next album, Dave Edmunds. Remember him? He produced one. Elvis Costello and Roger Bertrand. Now, early on, Stuart Copeland's brother from the Police, Stuart Copeland, the drummer, Miles Copeland, was involved with that group also. Elvis Costello, all of them. And they did East Side Story, which was a 14-song jumble. Think of the White Album, and as Nicolas Cage would say, "But not." That's what it was. And Someone Else's Heart, which sounded like the Zombies, Mumbo Jumbo, that certainly was Elvis Costello's influence of crazy manic lyrics. Fake Rockabilly with Messed Around, which was originally a Ray Charles song. Is That Love? Winsome. Well, they were also in their early 20s. So Dan Snow replaces Paul Carrack, who ended up doing very nicely in Ace of Base, but after Ace of Base, went to do Tempted, joined Squeeze, and then went off to Mike and the Mechanics, which he did pretty well. And he pulled a lot of the soulful white soul singing from that song, Tempted. Now, when the hangover strikes, it's kind of like a Cole Porter song. I've returned, ringing guitars, exuberant Tilbrook vocal. Tilbrook had the same voice, not quite as good as Boy George back then. Boy George is 2 octaves lower now, and uh, he still sounds good, Glenn. So what happens after that? Well, you have 1983, 84. They disband. They stop writing together. But Difford and Tilbrook decide, yeah, we'll write together, and a very uninteresting album that's a little more funky, but they come out with Difford and Tilbrook. It sounds no different than the band's lesser stuff. And in fact, they found Keith Wilkinson on that album, and he became a new member of the Squeeze band when Harry Colucci, the bass player who had taken the place of John Bentley, he leaves. Now, I think sometimes they tried to sound like Hall & Oates, but didn't have the cynicism. Loves Crashing Waves, Picking Up the Pieces. Good stuff. If you're a Squeeze fan, you were happy enough that, well, they still get along. Maybe Squeeze will get back. I became a fan in November of 84. They were broken up. I was given as a gift 4 or 5 of their cassettes, listened to them all. Then they went back together in 85. So I was happy. So the divorce was a failure. Unsatisfying. They reconvened with Gilson Lavis, new bassist, like I said, Keith Wilkinson. But things didn't really fall into place. They did Cozy Fan Tutti Frutti in 85, and it's a little bit depressing. It's afflicted by blandness, okay? It's somber for Squeeze. They can't get you to dance anymore because the 80s changed. Even Paul McCartney came out with Press to Play because no one knew what to do in the mid-80s. Use synth drums, no one knew it. So we'll put everything on an album, 100 instruments, turn it up loud, and we'll call it 80s power ballads. As you know, go listen to an 80s song now. You'll never get one wrong. If I put on anything, you'll say, oh, that was the 80s, because the 80s sounded like the 80s. The 80s, you may have survived it, but the music didn't. So they refitted themselves with a second keyboard player. Robin Hitchcock's bassist, who also played keys, Andy Metcalf, who went on to answer Jules Holland. And they came out with Babylon and On. Confident, a little savvier production, not as overproduced. Tough Love, Footprints, The Prisoner, great songs. Footprints is a song that you might have heard. And if you didn't, you'll hear a bit now. Pretty catchy. I actually played with my band on that stage that they played in 88. So it's likable enough, but it's Squeeze. It sounds like Squeeze. Squeeze now sounds like Squeeze. So Babylon and On, it's a decent return. The album after that is Frank in 1990. They didn't have a record label. They got dumped from their record label. So the new record label doesn't put any PR out for Frank. It's more of a rehabilitation. It brought them to modernized, jaunty pub rock, but no one knew it was coming out. So the material was good, but no one heard it. But it was pretty good. If It's Love, Peyton Place is good. Um, if It's Love is a song that you may have heard, and if you haven't, you're going to hear it now. His voice is still great. 1990, 89. But a catchy middle eight. Then my teeth agree for a change. So you're still getting the squeeze sound. They're trying to sound a little more adult-like and post-punk. It worked. Slutted, Gutted, and Broken Hearted. Difford always has a song or two because of his baritone on the album. Rose I Said. Witty melodic energy. Co-produced by Glenn and Eric Thorgren. And it had a relaxed live studio feel. It was easily their best since Archie Bargy. So the same enthusiasm comes out in 1990 with Around and About, recorded live, a couple of dates in January at the Albert Hall, I believe. Good live album. Matt Irving goes on keyboards and accordion. He rejoins the lineup. Jules Holland comes back in for the 10th time. And it's a career summary. They do an overbeat overhaul of Sweets from a Stranger, Black Coffee in Bed, pop soul. You would think that maybe Paul Carrick would have sang that one. So a dozen years after a great soap opera of Up the Junction, they just feel they can't do it anymore. Difford goes off and is an assistant to Brian Ferry. Tilbrook is playing little bars with a camper that he bought around America. Chunky lyrics. Bruce Hornby got involved with the album Play, which was the lyrics weren't sharp anymore. Now Steve Naive, Elvis Costello's keyboardist, comes into fold. Also does his Thomas's drummer. And Bruce Hornsby even gives a little tick up with Gone to the Dogs. Some of their old charm, but you're seeing the decline of your youth in your headset. So now, what happens? Around 93, Difford and Tilbrook are hardly talking. They go to L.A. The girl that Tilbrook was dating, when he answered an advertisement in a coffee shop window that Difford needed a guitarist, had a tour planned, the band, none of it was true. That's how they met. Early on, they realized that Difford's words were better than Glenn's, but Glenn's the tunesmith. They get together, 1973. So the girl that was with Glenn dies, I believe, of leukemia. Chris writes a beautiful song because Chris knew her, and that brings them back together. Now, Pete Thomas of The Attractions, Elvis's group, Elvis Costello comes in, joins Tilbrook, Difford, and Keith Wilkinson again. Some studio musicians for Some Fantastic Place. It undoes the damage of Play. It's warm. The quality control, I'm a lyricist, of the writing isn't great. Whoever the A&R people that put the album together put some songs in wrong spots. Too many of the songs, for me, are revisited. They're overly familiar terrain. Failed relationships, tired melodies, transposed backwards. I can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to recapture their youth of success, but we'll just switch it around. No. Well, we knew. and the death is imminent. A couple of over the top cliches that don't work anymore. You know, this is the 90s now. The second British invasion of the early to mid 80s was gone. The punkers are now 35 years of age. They went on to the Clash and Duran Duran. So Paul Carrick comes back and does a wonderful song, Loving You Tonight. And it does the album a lot of good. It really does, because Carrick just has been involved in a couple of songs with that band, and they were both hits. And it's in a minor key, which gives it a little of the Chris Difford panache of being a sadder song. And Some Fantastic Place is one of the most underrated songs that I've ever heard. It's a brilliant song. Chris, it's coming from the heart, and you can certainly tell that with this song. It's about heaven, and Chris doesn't leave anything out.
She gave to me her tenderness, her friendship and her love.
And then at the end, the chorus, like, for about a minute. So it gets you in the mood for, like, gospel-y kind of, we still see you, we love you, and we're talking again. That kind of thing. And she actually brought those two back together again just because she existed. So that's a good thing. So now 1999 comes. They're reduced to a quartet for the first time. Difford Tilbrook, Keith Wilkinson, still around, and new drummer, Kevin Wilkinson. Kevin Wilkinson, by the way, was a 20-something-year-old drummer who passed away in 99. So the album is ridiculous. They make it not much fuss. They just put it out there. And A Sweep to Their Childhood, Electric Trains, Desire, in a song, I Want You. Daphne, some good stuff. But Squeeze still can't find out who they are. I don't think they know. And the problem is, either do we. At least we could tell them by going and buying the records. So it's a typical dilemma. Like MTV, no identity. You didn't know what to do with them. You knew they were good, but how good? It's kind of like, if you read in Rolling Stone magazine, perfect example. If Kim Kardashian buys a bag of shit and says it's the in thing, every young girl will be have it on her side. If she says she hates it, no one will like it. Well, it's the same thing. When you're getting beat up in the press, people think you're no good. And they were getting beat up in the press at that time. So they come back in 2010, I believe. And the funny thing about 2010, I went to, happy birthday, George Harrison. I went to a Glenn Tilbrook concert. Hey, Miss Can't Be Wrong. Don't Shed a Tear. Great song. I went to a Glenn Tilbrook concert, and I was with somebody. And after asking him if they were ever going to get back together, Squeeze, one of my actress friends had told me a story of how they started talking, Difford and Tilbrook, if they're not talking for 5 years, over a barbecue. She had heard the story from Elvis Costello. At the meet and greet, I told them, I heard you got, how did you know that? I asked if they'd ever get back together. He goes, no, he goes, Chris had two houses I never saw during Squeeze. He goes, now we're friends. I turned around, looked at the person I was with, and said, they're getting back together. She says, he just told you they're not. I was in a band. 3 months later, they reformed. I knew it. Hey, G. So now, where are they? Well, they go on the concert tour, and then they do something that no one thought they'd ever do. They actually come out with a new album, 2017, after being together touring for 2 or 3 years, called The Knowledge. Good song, A&E, talking about England, every story, every cupboard, scratch cards, lotto tickets, dreaming of houses in the sun. The reality of Monday isn't so much fun. You got to get up to work. Kids think they're adults, and the adults think they're young, right? Talking about how you can't live in England anymore unless you're a millionaire. Their kids are lucky that their parents are. So they come out with that one, received pretty well, really was. And then they come out a few years later with an excellent album. Well, actually, that was 2017. Now, the album, I believe before that, they had an album. I'm doing this all with no notes, so I'm sorry. No, in 2015, they were touring for 2 years, came out with Cradle to the Grave. This was a hit television series for 1 year in England. One of the guys that did the series went to school with Chris in Deptford. They wrote the soundtrack for it. Cradle to the Grave. Sounds like Paul McCartney's Dance Tonight. Nirvana. Which brings you back a little gospel-y. And then you have Honey Trap, which tells you about a guy, 15, girl breaks up with him, and he just buys a new corduroy jacket and moves on. And Snack, Crackle, and Pop, which is very, very interesting songwriting by Chris Difford. Painting the word picture for you. And then you hear toward the end one of the great lines on here. I'm living with the best of me and a picture of what used to be. And the greatest. Excellent. So, what do they do for an encore? They do The Knowledge. And that's already 9 years ago. So, and they continue to, over the last 13 years, to tour. Then they find in a basement old cassettes that they did in 1973 that they wrote together. But Glenn couldn't teach them how to play it. They weren't that advanced musically. Great lyrics, music, but not refined. So it's a storyboard of Trixie's. And what that is, it's really a disco. And they're trying to write like the Kinks did, Preservation Society. They're trying to write a storyline. And they're releasing it March 6th. And there are a couple of songs off that album already. It's called Trixie's. That's the thumbnail. And there'll be 13 songs. And then they have this. So this was revisited stuff from 50 years ago that they redid. They actually re-recorded everything. But there's stuff that was written when they were in their teens. They have a new album coming out probably in 2 months from then with all new stuff. But you have Trixie's Part 1. Remember, it's a sound collage. And it's telling you about the club. Telling you a little bit about people that walk in there, but then right after that, you walked in. There's the cabaret playing, so you were on the street. Undoubtedly, that's what he meant. There's a door behind the stage where the people go down, leads down to the cellar, card games, hookers. The waiters will take your coat. Nothing hasn't changed, not for the better. It's not going to. It's Strixie's. So you're going to go back in time, how different in Tilbrook thought as 17-year-olds. That is amazing. I can't write a song like I did. My first song, Until the Day I Die. Look at your life and what have you done? You've had a lot of lovers and you've had a lot of fun. Look at my life. All I have had none. Been living from my shadow, living under the gun, but the days are few and the nights are long, and I'm sitting here not where I belong. I love you. I always will until the day I die. Looking back at the years, I still haven't changed like a wild horse that you couldn't tame. Maybe somewhere in time, we'll try it again. Just give me the sun, and I'll no longer pretend. I remember my songs. That's why I was good as a frontman. I don't have to look at a monitor. But I could not write like that again. Now, it might suck to you, but I still can't write like that again. You know, that's the amazing line. I'm living with the best of me and a picture of what used to be. How many of us live that way? All of us. So you may ask me, why do I love them? They were force fed on me. And I'm very happy that I found out about them. Now, they're around so long that they're not even behind themselves, they're in front of themselves. And you know, sometimes you're losing the race so bad you actually think you're leading. And that's what I think happens with this band. You know, they came out of a time when you had the Clash and all those bands coming. Their first incarnation back in '74. They're playing when the Velvet Underground's around, reading all that stuff. They're out of Southeast London, Deptford, which I visited. It's kind of like it looked back then like Greenpoint, as Christopher Walken would say, but not. Another reference to the great Nick Cage. So they were an alternative, I think, to Dire Straits in the musical scene back then. That's what I think. And interesting where Miles Copeland is involved with the Police, who became megastars, and Squeeze that never quite get there. Now, they were spoiled with the early success. And then it just didn't resonate with anyone. Now, in 2007, I think is when they came back, actually. They reformed Squeeze for a bunch of shows for the Universal and Warner reissuing of the band's back catalog so they can make new money. They didn't have any of their rights. If you re-record stuff, anybody that sees re-recordings, that's so the artist can make money because they don't have any rights to the other stuff. And the time frame has allowed them to do it. So what they did, Squeeze, is they re-recorded everything. So they've been touring religiously and doing very well. They actually are getting really good reviews. And it's incredible. A band that seemingly has 9 lives and you just don't bury it. Yeah, leave it alone. They're just viable enough to you and relative enough for you not to close the door on them. Now, why? Am I 25 again? So, yeah, stay around. I don't give a shit if they're in a wheelchair. That means I'm young. Maybe. They're new wave. They're post-punk, pub rock, English pub rock, power pop. They are one of the main links, though, between British guitar pop and post-punk. They are. Pop punk. That's what I used to call them. And I never thought they were a punk band, but I thought they imitated it. It was Halloween every night for them, and they wore the punk band persona. Now, they were influenced by the Beatles and the Kinks, Bowie, King Crimson, I know differed like Greg Lake, the Blockheads, Ian Dury, Dylan, of course, the Velvet Underground, Lou Reed, Glenn Miller, the Ramones. Eclectic. That was their age. So, you know, and they've been influenced by Marshall Crenshaw. If you listen to him, um, the Replacements. I know Tommy Stinson said that he liked their stuff. Um, the Killers, Razor Light Space. You have so many. Now, the members, the original members, like I said, Glenn Tilbrook, Chris Difford, um, John Bentley, Gilson Lavis, and Jules Holland. The current members now are Tilbrook and Difford, Stephen Lodge, great keyboard player, a little younger than them. Simon Hansen, great drummer, also probably 15 years younger than them. Steve Smith on percussion, probably 25 years younger than them. And then you have Melvin Duffy, Owen Biddle, Nancy Adora. Uh, they've expanded to like 6 or 7 people on stage now. But interestingly enough, not to handle the vocals because he is fine vocal wise. I'll give you a little bit of what different sounds like, well, what Glenn sounds like now. And I have to tell you, they sound good. His voice is still great.
Said I'll see you later and I'll get a small chat. They saw that on the TV when it's but that's his good.
So I'm probably going to be freezing up, but so they're still a good act to see live. If you want to go back through the midst of time, you can, and you could hear it. You hear the aging, but you hear the thankfulness in the voice. I'll give you a perfect example. I am training my class. I don't know if Steve's on here. I do 2 classes. I'm doing the great artists of the 20th century. I'm covering Burt Bacharach for my tomorrow class, and I have everyone trained to sing a song. My vocal cord, I have a nick in the vocal cord. I need it repaired before I could really sing again. But I still sing because that's just me. So I had to do something today, unprepared, and you could hear.
You see this guy.
Can't do it.
This guy's in love with you. Yes, I'm in love. Who looks at you the way I do? When you smile, I can tell we know each other very well.
I'm trying to get through it.
I'll show you. I'm glad.
Very hard because I need the voice, I need the chord worked on. Now, just to compare, only a few years ago, this is what the voice really sounds like. And after the vocal cord operation, this is what it will sound like again. I promise it will. Silence. It would sound good if it sounded like this, right? I'm sure you're saying that to yourself. Now you hear the wavering in the voice, right? No strength. Well, says I got to have a change of scene. Every night I have a stranger's dream. Losing by the way that I've been. That you're on my own. So it seems I've got to leave before I start to scream. There's something I've been to I'll get back there. I'll get there. It'll take a little time. I don't know how long I won't be able to sing for, probably 6 months. So when I decide to do it, I'll do it. But I'm teaching now and I have to be able to talk. So Squeeze off the record, on the record. Check out Squeeze if you haven't already. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Have an amazing rest of your night, everybody. I'm going to be putting my music shorts on in a few minutes, so check those out. And I will see you soon. Take care.